Today I will be showing you a Kitchener graft in garter stitch fabric. A Kitchener graft is worked slightly differently in garter stitch fabric in order to maintain the pattern across the seam. There is an important step that you have to do in order to begin a graft for garter, a Kitchener graft for garter, in order to make it line up properly. The first swatch has to end with a purl row, and the second swatch, so that's on the right side of the work, you've ended with a purl row. The second swatch, or the second piece, has to end with a knit row on the right side. If you do not do that, this will not line up correctly. So that's the first step. You have your pieces wrong sides facing. So this is the right side and a purl is presenting to me, and this is the wrong side of the second piece, and again a purl is presenting to me. So a purl needs to be presenting to you on both needles. You thread your tapestry needle with your seaming thread, and just like with the Kitchener graft in stockinette or any other stitch pattern, there's a setup step that has to happen, the on step for the first two stitches, the first stitch on each needle. So the on step for seaming this in garter, and this works, is different because the seam coming off of this row needs to look different than the seam going into this row in order for the garter stitch seam to look seamless. You can't seam it as stockinette, as knit and knit, because that's not what garter looks like. Garter goes from a knit to a purl. So the steps for this are really easy to remember because they are the same on both needle. So to set up, you insert in the first needle as if to purl, and it doesn't matter if you're working on the front or the back, just wherever your thread ends up, go to the other needle. I'm using a new thread, so I can go on whichever one, but it doesn't matter. So you go in as if to purl, and you pull it through, and you leave that on that needle, and then you move to the next needle and you do the same thing, as if to purl. Keep your needle and your thread underneath your knitting needles. Alright, so that's the setup. Now the steps to work across are knit off and purl on both needles. So knit off, purl on that front needle, pull through loosely. Knit off on the back needle, purl on. We can tighten this up later. Knit off, purl on. Go to the back. Knit off, purl on. Knit off, purl on. Knit off, purl on. I will continue to work across, and I will show you what that looks like when I am done. So I've worked across, and I have just one stitch left on each needle. So the same as regular Kitchener graft, you just work the off steps. So this is a knit off, so I will knit and take that stitch off, and then I will knit and take that stitch off and pull it through. And I've worked loosely, so now I need to tighten up my seam to make it the same tension across as the rest of my knitting. So I do that stitch by stitch. Until it is the same tension as the rest of my knitting, and I will work that across and come back when I am done. Here it is, complete. So you can see that it is seamless. The purl, the garter ridge is maintained across that seam. So there's a purl stitch, and then a knit stitch in the seam, and then a purl stitch coming out of the seam. And if it had been worked in the gray yarn, it would be invisible. So that is how you work a Kitchener graft in garter stitch fabric. Thanks for watching.